Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Wednesday. Number 1, the big campaign kickoff.
President Trump launched his re-election campaign in Orlando last night. He unleashed on the media and slammed the Mueller report and Hillary Clinton as the crowd chanted, "Lock her up."
It comes amid another cabinet shakeup. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan has stepped down after domestic violence cases involving his family resurfaced. Number 2, more than 2,000 people packed into a meeting in Phoenix to discuss the police response to an alleged shoplifting incident.
The meeting turned into a wider discussion on police brutality. The father involved in the incident, in which people pointed their guns at his pregnant wife and young daughter, said his family is lucky to be alive.
The mayor says she's sick over the case, and many in the crowd used the meeting to address other frustrations with the city's police department.
Something has to be done so that this never happens again.
I am listening to what you say. At the end of the day, though, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in what happens after this meeting.
The police chief there was booed when she said real change starts with the whole community, not just police. The mayor announced that nearly all officers will wear body cameras by the end of the summer.
On to number 3, more Americans are saying they fell seriously ill while visiting the Dominican Republic.
The latest claim involves a bride from Virginia who says she fell unconscious during her honeymoon at a resort in Punta Cana and was told she had a blood infection. She's waiting for test results to determine the cause.
Another woman claims her flight home from the resort was filled with people who had become sick. At least 8 Americans have died in the Dominican Republic this year. But the State Department denies there's been an increase in the number of American deaths compared to previous years.
We head to Philadelphia for number 4. That's where 2 crew members on a cargo ship have been arrested in one of the largest cocaine busts in U.S. history.
Authorities seized 33,000 pounds of the drug worth more than $1 billion. Prosecutors say one of the crew members claims he was going to be paid $50,000 for helping load the cocaine on the ship.
They traveled from South America before arriving in Philadelphia on their way to Europe.
And finally, number 5, a new poll may make you want to take a deep breath and hold it for a while.
It found that nearly 40% of people between the ages of 18 and 24 don't use deodorant.
The numbers improve slightly with age. About 30% of 25 to 34-year-olds admit they don't use it. And
apparently, it's not that they don't believe in personal hygiene, because their shower rates match most of society. They just don't think they need deodorant. That study stinks.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Whew. It's morning, America. Hey, good morning. Let's get right to that big story. President Trump kicking off his re-election campaign by turning to his old playbook.
The president bragged about the economy and his other accomplishments during his rally in Orlando last night, but he spent much of the time rehashing a long list of grievances, taking aim at familiar targets, including the media, the Mueller report, and Hillary Clinton.
ABC's Mona Kosar-Abdi has the highlights, including what the First Lady had to say. Mona, good morning.
Good morning, Janae. Good morning, Kenneth. President Trump spent the night positioning himself as the underdog rather than the incumbent, revisiting his 2016 campaign that never really ended.
I want to introduce my husband, the President of the United States.
President Trump officially launched his 2020 campaign in front of thousands of supporters donning his signature red hat.
We're going to keep making America great again, and then we will indeed keep America great.
But that's not the only component of his 2016 campaign that's crossing over into his re-election bid. The president's hour-and-a-half-long speech rehashing many of his past grievances.
33,000 emails deleted.
Continuing the trip down memory lane by once again decrying what he refers to as the special counsel's witch hunt.
What did they come up with? No collusion.
Trump telling his crowd of supporters he will not let them down as he touted a list of his accomplishments.
Our economy is the envy of the world, perhaps the greatest economy we've had in the history of our country.
The president hardly mentioning the nearly 24 Democratic presidential candidates eyeing to challenge him, aside from Senator Bernie Sanders, who quickly fired back.
An hour-and-a-half speech of lies, distortions and total absolute nonsense.
And former Vice President Joe Biden, who recent polls show ahead of Trump in key battleground states. Biden tweeting overnight that President Trump, quote, inherited the good economy from the Obama-Biden administration.
And next week in Miami, the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates will face off for the first time ever in their first debate. Janae, Kenneth?
Our thanks to Mona.
And Trump administration officials say they were not aware of President Trump's latest plan to crack down on illegal immigration.
The president tweeted that immigration officials would begin the process of removing millions of undocumented immigrants next week. But a senior official tells ABC News that the deportations described by the president are not imminent. And a Homeland Security expert said there is no way to logistically carry out such an operation.
Meanwhile, the president is now praising Mexico for, quote, doing a good job now that its National Guard troops are patrolling the border with Guatemala. Now to the shocking departure at the Pentagon. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan has withdrawn his name to lead the Pentagon just hours after domestic abuse allegations involving his family resurfaced. Now, many are wondering why the White House didn't know about the allegations. One senator is even calling for an investigation. This morning, the Trump administration under fire following the sudden resignation of the acting Secretary of Defense.
They don't like to vet. All these assistant secretaries, assistant this, assistant that, don't get vetted. And look what happens when you don't vet.
Patrick Shanahan withdrew his name from consideration to be defense secretary just hours after a report revealed allegations of domestic violence within his family. The Washington Post reports in 2010, police were called to the Shanahan house to find him with a bloody nose. Both Shanahan and his then-wife Kimberly accused each other of physical violence. Police arrested only Shanahan's wife. He later dropped the charges. And in 2011, police were called after Shanahan's then 17-year-old son, Will, got into a violent altercation with his mother. The arrest report says Will grabbed a baseball bat and struck his mother on the back of her head. In a statement, Shanahan says, "I believe my continuing in the confirmation process would force my 3 children to relive a traumatic chapter in our family's life and reopen wounds we have worked years to heal." The White House is now facing new questions about why the allegations didn't surface in 2011, when Shanahan was nominated as the Pentagon's second in command, and again before he was named acting defense secretary on January 1st.
I feel that there was possibly a deliberate concealment here. I think there ought to be an investigation by the IG in the Department of Defense.
President Trump defended his administration's vetting process while praising Shanahan.
I had heard about it yesterday for the first time. We have a very good vetting process, and you take a look at our cabinet and our secretary is very good, but we have a great vetting process. He's a terrific person, and it's a difficult time for Pat, but he's going to take a little time off for family service and for working things out.
Meanwhile, just days after Shanahan approved sending 1,000 more troops to the Middle East in response to rising tensions with Iran, the Pentagon now has 4 top positions vacant, including Secretary of Defense, Deputy Defense Secretary, Air Force Secretary, and Chief Management Officer.
This is a very difficult time with everything going on in Iran and all the provocations and counteractions. And to have no Secretary of Defense at this time is appalling. And it shows the chaos in this administration.
The White House has named a new nominee, the widely respected Army Secretary Mark Esper, who will face Senate confirmation.
San Francisco is getting closer to banning the sale and distribution of e-cigarettes. The city's Board of Supervisors endorsed the restriction unanimously, but the ban may end up as a ballot issue in November. Families of those killed in the Sandy Hook shooting are fighting back against people who say it didn't happen.
Just this week, a website host has been ordered to watch what he says, and a book that calls Sandy Hook a hoax has been pulled from shelves. ABC's Brian Milkey has more.
Hey guys, that's right. A lot of these parents' lives were shattered in an instant, and yet, for the last 6 years, a lot of them have been battling conspiracy theorists, falsely claiming this entire thing is a hoax. Well, yesterday, these parents won a legal battle. Lenny Posner is the father of the youngest child killed at Sandy Hook, and he sued the authors of a book claiming this shooting was staged. Well, Posner won a defamation lawsuit, and the publisher is now apologizing to him. I spoke to author Anna Merlin, who studies conspiracy theories, and I asked her why a lawsuit, why reliving these memories was worth it to these parents.
Lenny Posner will tell you that he started out simply asking people to try to consider how hurtful it was for him and other parents to hear this. But it's also important to recognize that one of the things they're doing here is not just trying to get these people to stop spreading lies, but to get people to stop actively harassing them. It's not just that these people have websites. They call the families. They show up at Sandy Hook Elementary School and in the town of Newtown over and over. They really have devoted themselves to making people miserable.
And this is the really disturbing thing, you guys. Anna says that Sandy Hook was really a catalyst for something that's become commonplace. The new reality in this country is if you survive a mass shooting, you're not only going to deal with the grief, you're also going to deal with lots of conspiracy theorists demanding you admit it's a lie. We'll have a lot more on this lawsuit on Start Here later this morning. Listen on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. Janae, Kenneth?
Our thanks to Brad there. 8 people in northern Florida have been charged in a dogfighting conspiracy ring.
Federal prosecutors released aircraft surveillance video showing what they say is a dogfight in progress. They claim the dogfighting operation involved about 100 dogs. Most of them have been recovered and are being cared for. The suspects face up to 5 years in prison.
A mother of 3 who had her fallopian tubes removed just became a mother of 4. Elizabeth Q was shocked when she found out she was having another baby 4 years after undergoing the procedure that was supposed to prevent her from getting pregnant again. She had a smooth pregnancy and gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Benjamin, despite the odds.
My doctor said that it was very low. It was as close to 0% as you could get. It was one of the most effective birth controls, if not the most effective birth control out there. They did an ultrasound and they told me that he was in my uterus and he looked fine. He looked healthy. Everything was a normal pregnancy.
The most likely theory here is that an egg migrated to the area near where the fallopian tube would have been attached and entered the uterus through a tiny track. The kids call Benjamin their angel baby. Mom says she hugs him even tighter.
Oh, baby. Coming up, the dad and baby who went viral for their cute conversation.
Now taking the show on the road. See what they're up to now when we come back. Welcome back. We turn now to the Navy SEAL on trial for murder and war crimes.
Edward Gallagher is accused of killing a teenager who was under his care in Iraq, but the defense claims that case is built on lies.
This morning, a decorated Navy SEAL now at the center of a war crimes trial. Chief Edward Gallagher is accused of stabbing and killing a wounded ISIS fighter. Investigators say he celebrated after sending a picture of the body to his platoon member with a caption that read, "I got him with my hunting knife." During his opening statements, Gallagher's lawyer called the text an attempt at dark humor, telling the jury, was the photo in poor taste? Probably. Was the photo evidence of murder? No. Gallagher's wife says her husband is innocent.
He should be retiring next month, and yet he's been entrapped in this nightmare.
Gallagher, who served 8 tours of duty and earned 2 Bronze Stars, also faces 2 attempted murder charges in the shooting of 2 civilians, including an elderly man and a young girl in Mosul. Prosecutors say he threatened to kill Navy SEAL members who reported him. The politically charged case caught the attention of President Trump, who voiced his support for Gallagher on Twitter. And even before the opening statements, the case was shrouded in controversy. A judge removed the lead prosecutor for tracking emails between Gallagher and his defense team.
The defense plan for the next days and weeks is to annihilate the government's case, to show that these witnesses are lying, to show that these charges should never have been brought.
8 Navy SEALs are expected to testify. The defense claims the witnesses made up the allegations to get back at Gallagher for taking them closer to the line of fire than they wanted. The trial is expected to take about 3 weeks.
Well, let's take a break from the news and check our notifications.
Oh, starting with batting practice when this bunt goes horribly wrong for Nats pitcher Max Scherzer. Popped off there, ricocheted into his face, broke his nose.
Scherzer took a Scherzer to the face.
He sure did. He was supposed to start tonight, but
that's rough.
May not happen.
All right, so another sports, a soccer game broke out at a tennis match. That's right, you heard that right. Soccer at a tennis match when one tennis player lost his racket. So they start to rally with their feet. They go back and forth a little bit there.
Yeah, about as good with their feet as they are with those rackets.
We're calling this Tanaka.
Yes, that is what we're calling it.
Sinus.
Both of them.
It's a work in
we
progress.
like
This
those
title.
names.
Tell us what if you have a title.
That brings us to the question of the day.
It's not the question of the day.
What would you
we're
call
gonna make it the question
mashup
of the day.
tennis and soccer?
Yes. What would you call it? Give us your ideas. Tweet us.
ABC
comment.
News Live. We'd
love to hear from you.
Next, to a movement that's gaining momentum.
Nearly 25,000 people have signed an online petition for Time magazine to name KEANU Reeves Person of the Year.
The person who started the petition argues that the John Wick franchise star deserves the distinction due to his status as the most wholesome person alive.
It's been recently revealed that Reeves has been quietly running a private charitable foundation to fund cancer research in children's hospitals.
And of course, professionally, he is on a roll. While John Wick is still racking up profits, KEANU is also in Toy Story 4, something about Disney being the parent company of so-and-so, and the return of the Bill and Ted franchise.
Still nothing like Speed.
Love that one.
Love that one. All right, so next to the father and son duo who are taking their act national.
So you'll remember when we first met comedian DJ Prior and his chatty tot 19-month-old Kingston just a couple weeks ago. In the video, this one that went viral, where they're chatting on the couch, it looks like, now they're in a national commercial for Denny's.
That is good bacon. Right. Exactly why coming to Denny's makes us feel better about that. Thanks, bro. Appreciate that. Thanks. The bacon was amazing. You're right.
That's right.
Love
that bacon
it.
is delicious. The ad ends with a heartwarming hug and the tagline, "Booths were made for quality time with Dad."
We can't tell you how much we love that commercial, Denny's.
I will say that Denny's ad is a grand slam.
That better not be IHOP.
No, it's Denny's.
It is? You're sure?
Is it?
You think? He's
Mark,
not even sure.
Floor director. Yep, Denny's, right? Yeah.
And finally,
Mark goes to Denny's all the time.
this toddler gets a bit confused when he meets his mom's identical twin
I was like,
sister.
who's my mom?
Are
No,
you
wait,
my
no,
mama?
my mom's over there.
Wait.
No,
Are you my mama?
No, you're my mom.
Wait, who's mama?
He's got double vision.
Oh. We have some breaking news this morning as Iraqi officials say a rocket has hit an oil drilling site there. Let's go across the pond to Julia McFarlane in the London Bureau for more. Julia, good morning.
Morning, Janae. Morning, Kenneth. Yes, early this morning, Iraqi officials said that a Katyusha rocket was fired on an oil site that's used by a number of foreign oil companies, including Exxon Mobil, Royal Dutch Shell, and an Italian oil company. They say that 2 Iraqi oil workers were injured from the attack, the rocket landing sort of 100 meters away from a site that Exxon Mobil uses as an ops and a residential center. So what do we know so far? Well, no one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack, but this attack comes about a month after the US evacuated a lot of its embassy in Baghdad. This rocket attack happened in Basra, a smaller city outside the capital. But the US embassy withdrawing its staff from the country, saying that it was responding to unspecified threats from Iran and its allies in the area in Iraq. Iran, of course, is known to support some Shiite militias operating there.
And moving on, Japan is on edge today after a powerful earthquake shook the nation and forced evacuations amid concerns the quake may lead to a tsunami. Now we're hearing the threat has been lifted, Julia?
That's right, Kenneth. The tsunami warning was lifted after about 2.5 hours after it was first issued. A 6.8 magnitude earthquake hitting the city in Japan. 21 people were injured, and there were images on TV showing a lot of damage. People sort of rushing out of their homes. Of course, Japan is still, still trying to rebuild after that devastating earthquake in 2011. That near the Fukushima nuclear reactor. That area still trying to rebuild after the fallout from that.
Yeah, well, Julia, and the UN has some worrying new statistics about the worldwide refugee crisis. What do those numbers show?
Exactly, Janae. 71 million people are refugees. Now, the UN has come up with this number by tallying together the total number of asylum seekers. They are refugees who've had their claims accepted and processed, refugees and displaced people. Now, the thing is, that number could be a lot bigger because, of course, new things added to the mix. Venezuela, for example, there are about 300,000 Venezuelans officially recognized as refugees, but we know that more than 1.4 million have left the country since 2015. The UN using this just ahead of World Refugee Day tomorrow to draw attention to the fact that as new conflicts and new issues spring up, adding more refugees out to the mix, the old ones are still not being resolved, and that number getting ever higher.
Wow, 71 million. Julia, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, coming up, the death-defying stunt is set to take place this weekend.
The flying Wallendas walking on a wire 25 stories above Times Square. More after this. Here's what to watch out for today. President Trump participates in a roundtable with supporters in Florida before returning to Washington, where he'll present the Medal of Freedom to economist Arthur Laffer, who is known as the father of supply-side economics, which gained popularity until under President Ronald Reagan. Laffer co-wrote the book Trumponomics, which praises the president's economic strategy.
Former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks is set to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. President Trump has directed Hicks not to answer questions related to her time as his senior advisor, citing executive privilege. Hicks was one of the president's most trusted aides, and her name is frequently mentioned in the Mueller report.
Elsewhere on Capitol Hill, miracle on the Hudson pilot. Sully Sullenberger testifies in a hearing on the status of the Boeing 737 MAX as the company works to correct an issue with the plane's stability system.
Plus, don't forget to tune into The Debrief for an update on all our top stories, and The Briefing Room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
And finally, the death-defying stunt over Times Square.
Preparations are underway for Nick Wallendas' latest challenge, walking from one skyscraper to another on a wire.
Setting up that wire has been more challenging than the crew expected. More now from our Will Gans.
A wire just 3/4 of an inch thick, 25 stories above Times Square, stretching over 5 New York City blocks. It's Nick Wallendas' latest high-flying and death-defying tightrope walk. He's already crossed Niagara Falls and the Grand Canyon with no safety harness.
Winds are way worse than I expected.
But now Nick and his sister Liana set to walk a 1,300-foot tightrope, starting at opposite ends of Times Square and meeting in the middle, this time in the heart of Manhattan. Nick on hand as 100 riggers and 2 cranes shut down Times Square to set up the high wire.
It was definitely probably the most difficult rig that I've ever had to do, just because of all the pedestrians underneath and then all the obstacles of the city.
This latest stunt coming only 2 years after this. Nick's family, the flying Wallendas, crashing 30 feet to the ground during a practice in Florida. Liana suffering severe injuries to her face, not getting back up on the wire until now. Putting her life on the line, literally, along with Nick on live TV this Sunday night. But where is that inspiration coming from?
You know, it is, it's just life. My great-grandfather said life is on the wire, everything else is just waiting, and for us, it's true.
Waiting and practicing 4 to 5 hours a day at a facility down in Florida, ready to tackle one more death-defying feat, 250 feet above Times Square.
This latest stunt comes 4 decades after Nick Wallendas' great-grandfather died falling from a high wire in Puerto Rico. So let's hope and pray that he will be okay.
Absolutely. I mean, this will certainly be interesting to watch. I've seen Nick Wallenda one time before do one of these, and it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Of course, you can watch the 2-hour high wire live in Times Square with Nick Wallenda right here on ABC this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So tune into that and see just how he does it.
Yep, definitely. All right, that's it for us. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.